Welcome back to the channel, Outriders. Today we have a Torrential Downpour Legendary Armor build that will allow you to run Scrapnel Anomaly bottom tree, no blighted rounds, to do solo or squad T15s and expeditions. I have the entire gameplay here on Stargrave showing you can do it. And if you guys enjoy this, be sure to subscribe, tick that notification bell, and let's just jump right into the build. So there were a few commenters on the last video with the legendary set that wanted to see what the entirety of it looks like, and this is it. This is straight out the wardrobe, the 5-piece Torrential Downpour. And I am going to show you exactly how I build it to get T15 golds done. Possibly even solo if you're good enough. Let's begin with the class tree. We are obviously building Demolisher bottom tree. I have an alternate build that completely synergizes with Freeze for the Tech Shaman middle tree. If you guys want to see that with this legendary set, let me know down in the comment section below. But for now, this one builds around anomaly power. We got resistance piercing, which is going to help. Realistically, we're just dodging all the toxic based options down here. We're going to go in for wipeout so that we get an extra burst when we have weaker enemies. Is going to absolutely help with elites and so on and so forth, bosses. Adrenalizing antenna is huge because we're going to be using the blighted turret, and it naturally has like, I think, less than a 5-second cooldown. So we can keep that 30% up buff not only for myself but for my friends pretty much through the entirety of the run. We got a lot of other options here. We have heavy absorption, which is going to activate skill leech, which also synergizes with the rest of the skill leech that we have here. And emergency transfusion. When this comes together, we have insane lifesteal. The survivability is ridiculous on this build. Not to mention armored unit gives us an additional armor by 50% for 15 seconds. And we are going to keep that up with permanent uptime as well. More damage, more anomaly power, and of course this anomaly power buff by 50% for 10 seconds, activating any sort of ordnance. And that is an entire Scrapnel build, and we should be able to keep that with almost permanent uptime as well. For the skills, we're looking at the Scrapnel Grenade. This one allows us to have 6 of them total. Cold Snap is something that I use aggressively, again, because we are using grenades. If they just happen to align and clump up together, I will freeze them in place and then slam the hammer down on them. Then we're looking at Blighted Turret as well. This one is absolutely amazing because not only is it a form of crowd control and distraction, but we get that 30% anomaly buff as long as I keep throwing this thing out, and that's exactly what I do. Over to the build. This gun I consider the absolute best that I have located through this run. There are other options that I've looked at, like the Imploder, and I'm sure there's quite a few other anomaly-based options that aren't built around firepower. Many videos in the Legendary Showcase can show you them. This one is my personal favorite because it's got Kinetic Stomp, which really only activates around you yourself. And my goal for this build is to literally be right up on all the enemies, as close as possible. So realistically, anytime I take a shot at an enemy and I hit them, I'm doing 500,000 damage. Without any firepower, just one shot, and that activates every couple seconds. Now, the armor pieces I've chose to go with are the helmet, the chest piece, and the pants for the 3-piece bonus. The Torrential Downpour set bonus grants the Scrapnel, creating additional cluster bombs after explosion, each dealing 131,000 anomaly power scaled damage. Now, if you're looking at this, all 5 pieces on the attributes are going to have anomaly power, skills life leech, and cooldown reduction. Obviously, the more cooldown, the more active we can use our abilities and really utilize that strength. Anomaly is the strength for the build, and skills life leech is allowing our abilities to retain and control that health. Now, I have Captain Hunter as the one that I rolled onto this piece, and more traps is great because it gets 1 additional mine. Moving on over to the next piece, Trap Cluster is huge. This doubles the number of mines that can be thrown before triggering the cooldown. This is why we go from 3 to 6. That is an absolute must-have for this build. Emergency Stance is huge. Again, it's just a last-minute kind of safety net, if you will. It's not necessary. This game is really, really ruthless. Sometimes they're aggressive, but it's basically there to make sure I don't get erased. There's a lot of armor, there's a lot of sustain in this build, and a lot of skill life leech, but that's just there as a net. I could obviously opt into more damage if I want to. For the pants, we are looking at Arms and Anomaly. Critical shots increase your anomaly power by almost 20,000 for 6 seconds. I can keep that up pretty much permanent uptime, seeing as how I'm going to be synergizing that with the Roaring Umbra anyways to get that 500k. So those two are going to go hand in hand and synergize well. I get more damage as well, so the Scrapnel increases the damage by 120,000. Moving over to the gloves here, I have Anomaly Echo. This is really interesting. It gets about 12,000 anomaly power buff based on skill activation, and with how many that we have at our disposal, this is a pretty much permanent uptime, so that's basically 11,500 additional anomaly power, pretty much through the entirety of the run. Untamed Power, now this is huge. And you don't see this perk a lot because you have to be close to the enemy, and it doesn't look very good. They see the 52,000 and they're like, okay, I don't like this. Using skills deals 52,000 damage to enemies within a 5-meter radius around you. The damage is equal to 30% of your anomaly power. Clearly, we've built up our anomaly power, but why I like this is because that's 52,000 every time I activate an ability. Whether or not that's a Scrapnel Grenade, when we have 6 of them, so if you're doing the math, that's an additional 300,000. I can throw that turret under 5 seconds. That's another 50,000 every time I throw the turret. Anytime I pop Cold Snap, another 50,000. My melees, like the running and slams, the grand slams, those also activate it and pop 50,000 as you go, and you can also freeze, and that helps too. So there are just so many ways to synergize with that. So that is huge DPS right there. That's realistically usually about a third of my entire overall damage. If I go for about 200 million damage, about a third of that comes from that perk alone. Untamed Power is a must. Moving over to this right here, supplies came. I have 1 additional mine, again, necessary. We have 3 total, but that chest piece perk doubles up at 6. Stand Tall is something that I opted into. I'm going to be out of cover through the entirety of this. Realistically, I'm going to be in a pile of enemies the whole time, and I'm going to basically keep that 13,000 firepower and 9,000 anomaly power up indefinitely. Now let's see what this thing looks like. Now, full disclosure, this is going to be a little messy. I was just experimenting. This was my first time throwing this build together, running it, and I managed to nail a solo gold tier on Stargrave with a few seconds to spare, and I was still using an unoptimized build. I have definitely improved it since then. The one that you saw previously is obviously a modified version. The Umbra is going to definitely improve things. I have better gloves now, more anomaly power in general, and I really know how to work with the Scrapnel now, and of course synergize that with the Untamed, something I didn't know to do in this run. So if anything, I could probably beat this probably a minute, maybe even 2 faster when I really get down to it. So that being said, why this build, why I like it. For starters, it's something different. At the end of the day, so many people are stuck on blighted rounds or anomaly builds, are just really put on the back burner. People haven't been experimenting with them because of just how strong and how potent the blighted rounds are, and that's understandable. People want to farm, people want to get things done, and this is still definitely not as fast, but I'm okay running a run a little bit slower if it means it's more fun, and that's exactly what I plan to do with this one. Now, what I love about the Umbra is, again, it's 500,000 damage for every time. That's something that I'm missing in this. The clearing potential and what Untamed can do is great. And you'll know every time I throw an ability, every time I ground slam, every time I do anything, this little blue pulse wave shoots out of my body. And that's 50,000 damage every time I do it. And when you learn to balance that with the Umbra, so I take a few shots with the Umbra, proc the Meteor, and of course the Stomp, doing 500,000 damage, and then I throw a Scrapnel or 2, and then I do it again, and then I pop a Cold Snap, and I do it again, and it's just constant Untamed Power, constant spam, constant harass. And the cool thing about this build, because the survivability, as potent as everything is, I can, and I've tested this, stand still in a pile of enemies. Whether or not it's 5 or 10 elites, it doesn't matter. The sustain is ridiculous. The golem stance, ridiculous. I can realistically stand still and do a bunch of damage and just throw grenades at my feet, and they just keep walking into me, taking the damage over and over and over again while I put it down with the Umbra. That's how potent, that's how survival really is the key to this build. That's why I chose the Umbra, because I can afford to get that close. I don't have to stay back and shoot. I'm not there to be accurate to hit crits. I get up in their face, I take the fight to them, they can group up on me all they want. All they're doing is speeding up their own deaths. And that is what I love about this build. I'll be running it quite often on the Twitch. If you guys have not come by the stream, we generally try to build things like this and experiment a lot. You're more than welcome to come on by. But I'm going to let the rest of this gameplay play out. If you guys enjoy it, I'll catch you around on another one soon. Please leave a like, as it's something entirely different. I haven't seen anybody put this together yet. And again, thanks again for clicking on this video. I hope it helps you. If you have any questions whatsoever, let me know in the comment section down below. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.
secured it, and plenty of rock